Thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. Thanks. Welcome to our esteemed panelists as well. I'm honored to have this great set of panelists to discuss Malaysia's position in the semiconductor ecosystem and the way forward. So let's start off with outlining what is Malaysia's current position in the global semiconductor ecosystem. Malaysia has benefited greatly from semiconductor FDI in the last 50 years, and now is very well known for assembly and test services, as well as its back-end semiconductor equipment ecosystem. Frontend is probably one of the few names in Malaysia who's directly servicing front-end chip fabrication and equipment players. So Nicholas, maybe we start with you. Could you talk a little bit about the front-end journey? How did front-end penetrate the front-end ecosystem? And your thoughts on what Malaysian companies can do to be more involved in the front end, which is where 70 to 80% of the global value chain lies.
Good morning, all. Thank you, Gokul, for your questions. Basically, how Franken got into this precision, ultra purity precision cleaning, it sort of started more than 20 years ago. We were very fortunate to have at that time actually a company called Lam Research. They really helped us a lot. Started in Singapore, and then around 2012, in Taiwan, we were invited by one of the leading foundries in the world to support the equipment that we're using for the production of the then most advanced chips at that time. I believe it was 28 nanometer. At the time, the technology was very new, and no one really knew whether it would be successful and whether the demand for the chips would actually be there. So together with Lam, we basically took the plunge and went ahead. We set up a new facility, a new cleaning line, and we had to train our people. So it was sort of a bit of a blind faith in some way. Fortunately for us, it turned out to be very successful. The customer was very happy with the quality of our work, and from then, it sort of carry on from then onward. For whenever the customer has developed a new technology node, we were invited, to work with them during the R&D stage. So we had to spend quite a lot in R&D, and also in our equipment, whether it's measurement equipment, testing equipment, and all that. So that we can keep up with the latest technological development. So, in that sense, we're very fortunate to be able to work closely with equipment maker, again, including likes of Lam Research and the other players to enable us to continue on this path. And for Malaysian company, they definitely can get themselves involved in this. I mean, it's not easy market to penetrate, especially with leading edge foundries. But we all have the capability. It's just a question of making the right investment and to some extent, having to invest ahead before thinking of getting the work first.
Thanks very much. Thank you very much, Nicholas. So talking about semiconductor equipment vendors, we have seen a big upswing of semiconductor equipment vendors setting up operations locally in Malaysia as well. I think Lam Research itself has announced investments in Malaysia. So Ms. Soon, could you talk a little bit about the experience that Lam Research has had? What are the reasons for deciding to invest in Malaysia, and how do you think this is likely to go over the next few years?
Thank you very much for those questions. So Lam Research came to Malaysia in 2020, and right now we just completed our 2-year milestone here. Your first part of your question is, why did we choose Malaysia? And I think, Malaysia actually has a lot to offer, and we all know that. And that was also highlighted during the COVID time, where there's a worldwide semiconductor supply chain shortage, and then you start looking, and then there's a lot of it, of the sources of the materials come from Malaysia. So they definitely have highlighted the importance of Malaysia in the ecosystem of our semiconductor industry. And here we actually usually refer to as the E&E industry. So Malaysia has that advantage. And in addition to that, we also have the policies that are friendly to investor. So if you ask me how has it been, I think we have benefited from that type of support and enabler. So I think we're very happy that we have come. There are also many other reasons why Malaysia has this differentiating factors for attracting high tech investors like our company, ourselves. Talent, the ease of doing business, the language, very, very important. Being able to communicate clearly and proficiently with other sites, that's also a very important factor that we should not ignore.
Thanks, Ms. Soon. Maybe we go to Katie. So a lot of IDM or integrated device manufacturers also have significant presence in Malaysia, including Infineon, which has a very large factory. Katie, you guys have also announced big investments in leading technologies such as silicon carbide, gallium nitride, etc., which should power the future of the electric vehicle power semiconductor demand. Could you talk a little bit about the journey so far and what are the plans ahead in terms of these investments in your Kulim facility?
Yeah, okay. I would say maybe give a little bit of background. I would say that Malaysia is not new to Infineon. So I think we have started our first assembly and test operation in Malacca some 48 years back. And after that, I think some 17 years back, we have started the wafer fab, the first in Asia for Infineon. So I would say that this, for sure, now Malaysia is really a strategic hub because I think that Malacca, we have now the biggest assembly and test facility for Infineon. And in Kulim, we have the biggest 200 millimeter fab in Malaysia. So therefore, I think that why the company continue to invest, I think very clear, beside what Ms. Soon has mentioned. I think what is, for me personally, very key is the local talent. I would say that both Malacca and Kulim are basically led by local Malaysian. And this makes us very proud. And recently, I would say that the Infineon corporate has decided to invest more than 2 billion euro into our third module dedicated for wide bandgap technology, and which is, I would say that if it's ready by next year, then we would be the high volume manufacturing location for the wide bandgap first in Malaysia. And I think that that is very significant because I think although we do not have all the experience yet, but with the support from the Malaysian government, we have also sent people to Europe to bring back the technology into Malaysia. So that makes us very proud. And what I say that Malaysia, with the ecosystem now, I hope to see also more companies are expanding into wafer fab into Malaysia. Of course, this will create other topic like talent, which all of us are actually facing.
Thanks very much, Katie. That's very encouraging. Let me bring in Dato Wong now, who has kind of like a more of a top-down view in terms of what is the ecosystem looking like in Malaysia. So, Dato Wong, could you talk a little bit about how the ecosystem is structured? We know that there are very strong OSAT vendors, some IDM companies already here, but some of the other areas on the foundry side, etc., are still a little bit weaker compared to maybe Taiwan, Korea, or China. Could you talk a little bit about what is happening in the last couple of years among the smaller local companies? How is the ecosystem developing out there in Malaysia?
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to speak at Invest Malaysia. First of all, before I answer that question, I want to quickly give you a view of the E&E industry in Malaysia. We have been here now for 50 years. We are celebrating the 50 years anniversary this year. And we did that in KL, and we also did that in Penang, organized by the Malaysia Semiconductor Industry Association. In 2021, the export value was at 456 billion, which is 37% of total export. And it is an increase of 18% over 2020. And in the first half of 2022, over the first half of 2021, it grew 32%, a significant increase. So I would expect probably with some of the correction that's happened this year, we will probably have another increase of, I guess, 18-20% level. It could be more. It depends on how the second half goes. In terms of employment, it employs 590,000 people. Contribution to national GDP, 6.85%. And last year, the investment was at, for E&E was 148 billion, which is 48% of total investments, creating somewhere around 30,000 jobs. Oops. Am I still there? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. So you can see that the contributions and the jobs, economy, and so on, I call it the E&E industry as a golden goose of Malaysia. So today we have a very good ecosystem. As Katie said, we are quite strategic now for the E&E industry of the world because 7% of the global semiconductor trade flows through Malaysia. And we became even more well-known last year in September when everybody blamed us for the disruption. But we quickly recovered with the PICAS vaccination and factories all get online. So we are now on the so-called 100% manufacturing in terms of capacity and so on. So looking at the ecosystem, we have design companies propping up. We have fabs, which Katie is one of them. You have others, Osram and so on, but very few. And then the OSAT or the assembly test is the dominant part of our capability in terms of the whole supply chain. But as a result of all this, we created many world-class automation companies that are serving the semicon industry. So at the rate that we are going, I think most of the companies, the big guys, the listed guys are going global. And that's very good. And we really want to create more and more of this automation capabilities and serve the world. And so one of the focus areas is to help our Malaysian companies to grow. And how do we do that? We do that through what we call the waterfall effect. And I'm going to mention Inari because they buy millions of billions of equipment from our local vendors. And then not only that, these equipments then are used in other parts of the factories around the world. Now, if every MNC and every large local companies can do that, then our automation industry and you have all the supply chain down the line will flourish. And we only have to just keep up with the technological changes that's happening down the road. I think I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thanks, Dada Wong. Thank you very much. Now let's move on to a slightly different topic, which is of recent vintage, which is the geopolitical shifts and implications to Malaysia. Last 2-3 years, we have seen so many changes geopolitically, some degree of realignment and some degree of relook in terms of how people think about the semiconductor industry. This is a topic that also a lot of investors are interested in, given some of the changes that have happened over the last 2 to 3 years. So maybe I come to you, Nicholas, first. Given Franken's presence in Malaysia, Singapore, and Taiwan, what has been your discussions with customers like? How do you think about capacity, especially front-end IDM and foundry capacity moving to Southeast Asia and Malaysia in particular? Or do you think that these expansions are still going to be concentrated in Taiwan, Singapore, etc.? Also, how has your support capability changed or to support some of these some of these customers going to potentially even the US or Europe, where they've already announced some of these plans? Do you plan to follow some of these customers to these geographies as well? Nicholas, you're on mute.
Sorry, thank you, Gokul. I mean, yeah, we are constantly in discussion with all our customers, on their latest expansion plans. Yes, there have been quite a lot of announcements from our customers in Taiwan, Singapore, and also in Malaysia. Yeah? They're all expanding. They're all looking to have their commercial production in the next year or 2024. So, I mean, this is all very positive development for us. Whether any of the fabs or IDM are actually going to move to Malaysia, well, there have been some development, some new investment in Malaysia as well. Not sure about whether they are actually moving per se, but in terms of expansion, and if you heard Mr. Ng mention earlier, Infineon is expanding. I mean, we've heard in the past, Silterra looking to also expand further. I believe even X-Fab in Kuching also looking to expand. So we are obviously in constant discussion, and that's why we also expanded our capacity in Singapore, Taiwan, and also in Malaysia. So, but it's whether some of these fabs are going to move to Malaysia, I don't see any reason why not. We have good infrastructure, we have good ecosystem, and we have very attractive incentive schemes, and that we are offering to our foreign investors. So yeah, I mean, that would be obviously very exciting for us as a service provider. We look forward to all that, and we will continue to also invest in Malaysia. As for US, Europe, we've been hearing, they're all trying to attract a lot of the fabs to have a presence there. And well, I guess this is largely driven by the increased global demand for chips, and also maybe because of that COVID lockdown and all that, a lot were facing some logistical issues. I guess it makes sense for a lot of fabs, or for those countries to want fabs and foundries to be located there, rather than to be dependent, say, on the traditional overseas sources. So far, what we can see, especially like for the West, yes, we have requests from our customers to have present in the US. We are definitely interested. We're continuing discussion with our customers. At the end of the day, it has to be a viable business proposition for us. We want to support them, but we need the volume as well. So it's still an ongoing discussion. It's as I mentioned earlier, the commercial production, I guess, is not expected to start until probably around 2024. So there's still a lot of time for us to decide on this. But yeah, ultimately, we are honored and privileged, to be invited by our customers, and we want to support them, wherever we can. And we actually have started doing that from our Asia location, supporting customers in China and to a lesser extent in the US as well.
Got it. Thanks very much, Nicholas. Maybe bring in Dato' Wong here. Dato' Wong, you did mention that we are starting to see more design companies come in, some foundries and IDMs also come in. Could you talk a little bit about Malaysia's position in this new geopolitical equations that are emerging? I think we have international companies which are expanding capacity in Malaysia. There are Chinese companies also which have significant operations in Malaysia and are still expanding it. So how do you see this opportunity coming up for Malaysia in this kind of new environment?
Okay, let's talk about currently what's happening today. today and over the last, I would say maybe 9 months or 12 months, a lot of companies have already decided to expand in Malaysia, not counting the companies that are coming in, new FDIs as announced by MIDA. Infineon, they said, KT said 2 billion euro, AT&S came in 1.7 billion, Intel's 7.1 billion US, AMD, TF AMD 2 billion, and the next period 1.6 billion, and the rest, and Seta, Ferrotech, all that 500 to 550 million investment. They all announced, and the building are on the way. They are in progress, and not only that, even the automation companies or the supply chain, they are all expanding. Okay, until Penang runs out of land everywhere. I think Kulim runs out of land, and now everybody is looking for more land so they can continue to build. So that's the scenario we are in, expansion. I know that there is a correction. I know we can deal with that later, but nothing is stopping. They are going to continue to build because of the forecast that they are saying. Okay, so what is that forecast? The forecast says that in global forecast, that last year, Semicon 2021 grew 26%. Okay, exceeded for the first time 500 billion. And 2022, the forecast says 11%, maybe with correction, maybe 10%. And the CAGR is 7% for the next 5 years. So the growth is expected. It may go up and down like a cycle, like a signal cycle, go up and down. But the trend is positive. So with the geopolitical tension that is happening, of course, it opens up opportunity for our Malaysian companies, all right? Because they have to balance between US and China. Whatever China cannot ship the US, Malaysia can. Whatever US prevent China, Malaysia can, serve China. So we can serve both sides. And China, of course, would like to, and not just China. In fact, the whole world, I think, are looking at an alternative site. And I think Malaysia is the one that is standing out. Of course, we have problems to solve. Not that we don't have problems. And Malaysia is a very good, as I said, because of the 50 years experience, we can actually support most of the investments. So China has come in, TF AMD is China, Unisem, China have taken over, and there are a few other Chinese companies here. One Chinese company came here to set up a design center, and I'm seeing more and more design centers being set up. And I'm trying to encourage more Malaysian companies to set up their design centers. So there are a few of them, or one of them at least, going for listing, and hopefully we can see more of these companies going for listing. And I see that happening. So opportunities are there for us, and the rest of the world are looking at where is the best place to find an alternative site if they want to get out of the US or China or Europe. Where would that be? And I think Malaysia have a very good chance and good opportunity for all our Malaysian companies.
Thanks, Dr. Wong. That's very encouraging. The one other topic that has come up in the last couple of years, alongside geopolitics and supply chain issues, is basically the chip shortage. Maybe I bring in Ms. Soon here. I think even equipment companies have not been spared of some of the chip shortage issues recently. So Ms. Soon, how do you think about the supply chain issues across the semiconductor industry? As Dr. Wong said, a lot of companies are looking to expand, but equipment also has been a bit of a limiting factor in terms of their ability to expand in the near term. How do you see this evolve, or how do you see the current situation, and how do you see this evolve over the next maybe 6 to 12 months?
That's a very interesting question, because we all know that we're all experiencing the chip shortage, and it's so intertwined, and you can't really tell where is the start and where is the end. We cannot make more equipment because we have supply chain issue, and then we have supply chain issue because there are not enough equipment to make enough chips. So it's I don't know whether you could call it chicken and egg or not. However, it will get better. The reason is what we're talking about here is a capacity issue, or is a sudden onsurge of demand that, and coupled with the COVID situation that create this big void. So we talked about expansion. We talked about people continue to put in more investment. That is only going to help. The reason is because now you are adding, when you're investing, say, in Malaysia, basically a lot of companies are thinking about business continuity, so that you build some resiliency to that. That will help. Number two, just for the fact that you are investing, you are most of the time increasing capacity. I would say 80% of the time. You're not replacing or displacing. You are expanding. You are increasing. So all of that is going to help. We are actually seeing signs of that. Certain raw material situation improving. So directionally, we're heading the right direction.
Thanks, Ms. Soon. Maybe I'll just bring in Katie also in here, given your primary customer, the automotive supply chain, has probably been the worst affected by the chip shortage situation. And there's been a lot of talk about moving to just-in-case inventories and strategic inventory reserves from what was traditionally a just-in-time inventory model. Could you talk a little bit about how conversations are trending today versus 2 to 3 years ago on supply chain resilience, supply chain diversification, etc.? Does that have some element in your investment in leading technologies like silicon carbide and gallium nitride in your Kulim plant as well?
Yeah, I would say that very interesting segment, the automotive. So I would say that we know in some sector we are seeing a little bit facing some challenges. I think some slowdown. But I must say that in the automotive we are still pretty much in allocation, not able to supply. I think that the topic is not that there will be a lot of increase in number of cars being produced. It's just simply because I think from the in-combustion engine moving to hybrid or electric car, and on top of course also the automated driving, autonomous driving. And now I think the trend is also going even for the car, not having just one computer monitoring everything in the car, but they are also going to partition with more electronics going into the car. So I would say that with that kind of trend, one could expect the automotive sector would continue to be, I would say that in allocation for some time to come. Of course, other sectors due to inflation and of course will be affected due to things that are in the consumer area, be it gaming or be it mobiles and some other home appliances. But automotive, I would say that is still going to be leading going forward. I think the demand is still very strong, and like what we say, we continue to invest into power, supporting also all the charging, with the wide bandgap technology. So here we see the only discussion as the fab head is when can I deliver more? And would the fab be ready tomorrow? So I think that is the situation in the automotive, and with regards to longer term, I think still very attractive due to structural, but not necessarily just because people are buying more cars, but simply the content of electronic in per car is increasing quite a lot.
Thanks very much, Giri. We have a few more topics to go through, but the audience, if you have any questions, please type in the Hello chat platform, and we'll try to address as many questions as possible towards the end of the discussion. Now let's move on to where are the areas where we can see some degree of upgrade in the overall Malaysian semiconductor ecosystem, moving towards higher value added areas, especially now that the geopolitical framework is also quite favorable. Dr. Wong, I would like to bring you in to give an overview first. Could you talk a little bit about where are the most promising opportunities you see in the next 3 to 5 years for the Malaysian semiconductor companies? We have seen several promising announcements, both on IDM as well as on foundry. As you yourself mentioned, there are a lot of design service and design companies also coming up. And investments have also grown, I think, roughly 8 to 9x in 2021 compared to 2020. So could you give us an overview on where are the most promising areas from your perspective?
Okay, I think, as you know, Malaysia is already very strong in assembly tests, and we don't want to stop that. We just want that to continue, but to be enhanced with the latest technology, assembly test technology, as well as smart manufacturing. So keep upgrading ourselves and keep up with all the technological changes, but do manufacturing. So we do the state-of-the-art manufacturing, just like WD, which is they won the World Economic Forum, not the award, but recognition that they are the first in Asia to be lights out factory and the first in Malaysia to be the Industry 4.0 factory. We want companies like that to keep going up in terms of the capability and then to reduce the dependency on foreign workers, so to speak. Secondly, is that over the next 10 to 15 years, and I've been capturing all the announcements that are made throughout the world. USA with their CHIP Act of 52 billion. Intel says they're going to invest 100 billion in fab, TSMC 12 billion in US. I'm talking about now in US. So total up, I calculated is about 350 US billion. In Europe, Intel also said they will build a fab in Germany, France, Italy, Infineon, another 3 billion, ST Micro 4 billion. You add it all up in the announcement, also about 140 billion. And you look at Asia, China with their 14th five-year plan, they're putting in 150 billion. Korea with their K-Belt national chip plan, another 200 plus billion. Japan, TSMC, Samsung, Global Foundry. You add it all up, again, nearly 200 billion. And assuming that that's 10 to 15 years time frame, assuming that it is not true, only half of it is true. Even half of it is true, you're talking about 300 plus billion over the next 10 to 15 years. So are there opportunities for Malaysia? I think plenty. Okay, even if it's 1 quarter, it's still very good. 150 to 200 billion investment all around the world. That is for fab we're talking about. Then therefore, there will be a flow down onto assembly tests. Now, we just do not want to be just assembly tests. All right. So we want to attract the fabs to come to Malaysia so that we can complete our supply chain. And now our people have wider experience instead of just assembly test experience. Now we know that we have Infineon, but I'm hoping that there will be 92 fabs. There is a forecast over the next 10 years to be built. Even that is not true. Let's say it's 50 fabs and Malaysia can attract 5 fabs, 10%. I think that would be fantastic. And especially it comes from TSMC, Samsung or Intel. And after all, Intel's been here for so many years. So if we can put our effort and get in, then we strengthen our supply chain and more, related supply chain can be enhanced and built up. I mean, I'm sure Francon, Nicholas, you'll be happy if we have more fabs down here. So that's only one part. The other part is we want to go up into design development. And that is quite critical because today a lot of companies are doing design development, but they don't have factories. Broadcom, AMD, all have gone into that path. I think Malaysia can do that. We have in design since early 1990s. I brought in the first design center, semiconductor design, microelectronics design into Malaysia in the early 90s. Now we have already, 30 plus years in this design capability. So today we have, and I helped this Skychip, the new company, to come out and start a design center, a design company that does IC product design. I think that is probably the first in Southeast Asia. I wouldn't claim it in Asia because you have Japan and Korea. to do that. And they are doing 7 nanometers technology. So we want more companies like this to come out. They may come out to start up with design services, which is okay. But over time, we hope that they will get more into IC product and generate IPs and so on. That's what I think Malaysia should go to strengthen the whole supply chain and go into design and development. Today, if you're talking about the foreign investments, we have many, whether it's China, they have already set up a design center, India, US, they are starting design centers here. And I think I spoke to the government, I said, we got to help our Malaysian companies to get into the design of IC chip so that we can have a slice of that cake when the whole pie is growing and not just fall behind. So the opportunities are here.
Thanks, Dr. Wong. Maybe I come to Nicholas. Nicholas, Franken's story has been quite exciting over the last several years. Could you talk a little bit about what are the opportunities you see to move up the value chain for Franken? Like, what are the areas that you want to kind of diversify into? You already diversified your customer base quite a bit, but what are the next steps that we can look forward to?
Thank you, Gokul. I mean, as Dr. Sri Wong was mentioning earlier, I mean, all this, potential fabs that are coming up all over the world, and if Malaysia can attract a few of those companies to come out here, I mean, it'll be fantastic for us. We're a service provider, basically. So right now, it's all about the precision cleaning. There's a lot of gap, that we can still feel. Our customers are always looking for us to expand our service base. So we are constantly looking, whether it's in a form of making some components or parts to support equipment maker, or to do sub-fab work, or there's a whole bunch, and that's why we are looking at working with partners, for example, whether it's a machine shop or whether, to some extent, looking at M&A opportunities to fill in the gap that I was mentioning. There's a lot I believe that we can do. But because a company of our size, I mean, we're not a large company by any means. So we have to really plan and make full use of whatever capital that we have. So we have to grow at a pace that we are able to. And obviously, if given the opportunities, we want to be able to do more. In terms of the question whether we need to move abroad, it's inevitable. We will have to be where the business is, where our customers are. But right now, due to the expansion that we've been doing in our existing facility, in Malaysia, Singapore, Taiwan, so the focus obviously is to get all our new facilities up and running. As Mr. Ng mentioned, Infineon is expanding, so we will have to expand as well to support them better. In Singapore, we are already expanding. We should complete our expansion plan sometime next month, in fact. Then we'll be qualified to do new parts, new processes. And Taiwan, we have also completed our first, second facility ever, and it's now in the process of being qualified. So once all that is up and running, and we know we are able to maximize our full potential, then we will look at so-called expanding further and expanding our service base. We are in talks with a few other service providers to see how we can work together and to support our customers better.
Thanks, Nicholas. Now I would like to bring in Ms. Soon and Katie from the perspective of multinational companies investing in Malaysia. Could you talk a little bit about what are you seeing in terms of partnership opportunities with local supply chain as well as local vendors in Malaysia, given that there are a lot of companies coming up, small companies coming up in Malaysia who are potentially suppliers or partners to you? Maybe we start with Katie first.
So I would say, of course, I would have preferred all my suppliers are local, who could provide on time and competence support. But as a global company, of course, I think that have a little bit of expectation. I think on one side might be difficult to get in, but on the other side, once you get in, because typically you are also into Infineon to support also other fabs. I think that is where I would say that locally we try our best to also discuss with potential. And of course, I think like what Nicholas has mentioned, I think we need some of this local company to stay ahead of the curve or invest ahead in order to be competent to take the pie that is available. So I think that is for me a little bit the challenge. But nevertheless, I think as Infineon, we are also served by quite a number of local suppliers in the services, in the maintenance and things like that, spare parts. But I think there's a lot more potential to go up and take up more of these services in the supply chain in order to also make us successful in Malaysia. So I think that challenges, but also a lot of opportunity for the local companies here to support us.
Thanks, Katie. Ms. Soon?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm really glad that Mr. Nicholas Ng is here and to share a little bit of the journey, Franken's journey, and Lam has been a part of it as well. And actually, so for some of the milestones that you talked about, Nicholas, that I also participated on the other end. So some of the projects that you mentioned, I'm very familiar with them. So this is actually a very, very prime example of Lam research partnership with suppliers, local or multinational. And also, and you can see what Nicholas talked about is that we grow together. And then also, I think Nicholas was being modest earlier when he talked about, there's some certain limitations. But I think one thing that we see our suppliers that do very well is investing and also continue to do innovation, because there's so much that we have to keep up in terms of technology, especially on the front end side of the semiconductor. So let's talk about Lam research. And now that we have been here, so 2 years, we have already engaged and qualified quite a few of suppliers here. Some of them are multinational, but a lot of them are local suppliers as well. And our intention is continue to grow that base. We're basically looking for anyone who is capable, who is willing to invest and willing to take the journey along with us. Another thing that's very, very important is that very consistent with our company's policy and culture is that we look for companies, partners that share our core values as well. That is very, very important.
Thanks, Ms. Soon. Thank you very much. Let's come to the last part of the discussion, which is what are the challenges we are seeing to kind of step up as a bigger semiconductor ecosystem in Malaysia. We also had an audience question on this, which is primarily on talent and skilled manpower. Could we talk a little bit about how are we seeing this evolve, maybe both on the engineering side as well as on skilled operator side? Maybe we start with Nicholas first.
Yeah, I mean, talent is always a big issue, and then the lockdown obviously didn't help, especially for our operation in Singapore, which is very much dependent on foreign labor, foreign talent to support us. Malaysia right now, I mean, with all the new investment, especially up north. I mean, it's great for the country, but at the same time, we have a limited pool, and I hope, our supply can meet all the additional demand that we have. It's keeping the existing. It's not easy, It's not just about wage per se, It's to keep the work exciting and interesting for our local talent. For us, we're located in Kulim, but we will have to fight with people from Penang, from Batu Kawan as well, and it's not easy, and especially for our business service, where we constantly have to be wary about our prices, our costs. It's as I said, as Ms. Soon and Katie mentioned, it's a partnership. We got to become more efficient. Efficiency comes with the people you are able to keep and to do a much better job at a much better pace, but at a lower cost. So talent is an issue, and it's good that Malaysia recently announced this premium visa program and all that, and hopefully that will go some way to helping us. But I think from our perspective, I think keeping our local talent is also very important. We have been losing quite a lot, not just to our neighbors, but US is a very attractive place for a lot of our talent to want to be in, So yeah, but hopefully with further development and technological advancement, we can keep our people interested to stay on shore.
Thanks, Nicholas. Katie, any views from your side on this, given that you're also expanding a lot of capacity?
Yeah, I think the talent is, a topic for every company, especially on one hand, Malaysia has been very fortunate with all the FDI. So I think that when you are in a situation where talent is limited, what can you do? I think that all of us have a role to play. I would say that we have also decided as Infineon to also go for higher share of fresh graduate because we are not a small company. So I would say that, of course, every manager, if they lose a experienced engineer, they want to go and get a experienced engineer. So we have also decided to go for maybe up to 25% of fresh grad because I think that not that everybody is going after the few experienced guys, and this will also not be very sustainable. So I think we are good on our way. I think we are not affected despite very tight talent market. And we are also doing a lot of training, especially we send people to Europe for training. And we lost people. So on one hand, it's not good. But on the longer run, we are also supporting the local ecosystem. Because I think this is also important because for Malaysia to continue to be successful. So one thing I think that the government could also do, because if you now think about it, there have been a lot of Malaysians studying overseas and working overseas. If there would be one way to bring back all this Malaysian back experience one, I think it would be very fast for us to be also more successful in Malaysia. Yeah, making the condition more attractive. I'm very sure some Malaysians will say after so many years out there could be also attractive to come back to Malaysia.
Thanks, Katie. We'll take a couple of audience questions.
Can I Google?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Address this issue because I think this issue is on everybody's mind, and and looks as if we don't have a solution. But we got to be honest. There is not enough talent in this country. We have to be honest. If we don't face this problem and keep saying that we can overcome this through this program, that program is not going to happen because the number of investments that have been announced and the expansion that everybody is going to do, we know we don't have enough talent. So what is the situation? The situation is we have 15 to 20% of our talent leaving the country. Of course, a lot of them go to Singapore. They go US, they go England, they go Australia, they go, and China and Taiwan also target our people. They hire on graduation. They come to the university, also hire the graduates. And then you have a few percent of the engineers who decide after engineering, they decided that they don't want to do engineering. They want to do something else. They want to do finance, consultancy. I don't know what they want to do. So they drop off. And then you are left with about, let's say, 80%. Of the 80%, about half the industry says you are not industry ready. So what are we going to do? And then our number of students studying science and engineering is falling every year. So one, we have to inspire children to study science and engineering at a young age. And hopefully the science discovery centers and the parents and all that will encourage them. Of course, one of the arguments they tell me is that because the engineers don't get paid well, accountants and everybody else get higher pay. So why study engineering? After all, it's so difficult. The mathematics requirement is so high. Myself do psychology and do something else. But we got to tackle this problem. So we got to inspire children from young and have the government maybe help out the science discovery centers throughout our country to run programs that make science interesting and not just studying in school. The other thing is that we got to fill in the hole that are created by these 20% who left the country. Today, we have like 1.7 or 1.8 million Malaysians working overseas. Of that, 500 are talents. You know, we have a problem, but we can't get these people back. If we want to get them back, yeah, maybe over time. It takes time. But what can we do immediately? We got to start using other countries' talent. The government has to allow the companies to hire, number one, foreign students studying in Malaysia, especially in science and engineering, to be hired easily. Like other countries, they do. First 2 years, you can be hired. Immediately on graduation, if you get a job, you get hired. And then after the 2 years or earlier than 2 years, the company wants to hire you permanently, then you go and apply for your proper employment pass. So that way, we can get started. After all, these people, these students graduated in Malaysia, love Malaysia, and they want to work in Malaysia, I can tell you. So we have students from Iran, for example, Syria, Yemen, Bangladesh, what have you. You can hire these people if the government allow them to be hired easily. So that's the only partial solution, but we generally need a longer holistic manpower planning for the country such that we have the talents line up for the growth. Especially if Malaysia says, I want to be a country of innovation, a country of technology, a country of design and development. We need talents. We can't do that. So yesterday at the WSCIT, Hock Tan of Broadcom said, in US, his design people is like United Nations, he said. There are people from all over the world. The best talent around the world are in US doing design for Broadcom. Why can't we do that for Malaysia? If you look at Intel, it's the same. Okay. If you look at many of the companies, it's the same. So why not? The question is why not? So we got to act and do something so that we have an opportunity to grow and participate in the growth that I just described to you earlier. That there's huge growth that is coming forward. Where is Malaysia and how is Malaysia going to play in this game? Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Wong. On that note, I think we can conclude our session here. Thank you very much, everybody, for participating. It has been a very engaging and rich discussion. Hope the audience also found it fruitful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks.